Thank you for joining us for this sermon podcast from United Church on the Green, located in New Haven, Connecticut. No matter who you are or where you are on life's journey, you are invited and welcome. If you enjoy this podcast and would like to learn more about our open and affirming ministry at United Church on the Green, please visit our website at unitednewhaven.org. Thank you.
Good morning. What a pleasure to be here with friends from United and Redeemer, and to see so many folks from the University Church, to celebrate Christmas and the New Year, a year of much excitement for your two congregations, a time to look forward, a time to look forward to new things and good things. I wish you all a very happy New Year. I had you sing a strange hymn to start this service from Henry Wadsworth Longfellow, written in 1864. As his son was serving in the Civil War. And I was thinking of it because I thought, this is how I feel this year. And I hope you'll forgive the gendered language, but I didn't know how to change Longfellow in an appropriate way. But I love this thing. I heard the bells on Christmas Day, their old familiar carols play, and wild and sweet the words repeat, peace on earth, goodwill to men. And then this vision of that same song rolling out. But then he says, in despair I bowed my head, there is no peace on earth, I said, for hate is strong and mocks the song of peace on earth, goodwill to men. And sort of the way I felt about 2016 was that the book closes at that point. That's it. That's the end of the story. Hate is strong and mocks the song of peace on earth. In so many ways, I don't want to say just the political scene, but all sorts of different ways. I thought that was the message of the year. But I don't want it to end there. This is New Year's Day. This is 2017. And what was, as Shelley said, does not change what is yet to come. And so I wanted to reflect just a little bit on, I think, how we can approach Christmas and how we can approach New Year's as we look forward, perhaps, to verse 4. Then peal the bells more loud and deep, God is not dead, nor doth God sleep. Howard Thurman famously put it in his poem, when the song of the angels is stilled, when the star in the sky is gone, when the kings and princes are home, when the shepherds have gone back to their flocks, the work of Christmas begins. To find the lost, to heal the broken, to feed the hungry, to release the prisoner, to rebuild the nations, to bring peace among brothers, to make music in the heart. I think it's important for me, at least, to remember that Christmas is the church's celebration of the incarnation. God coming in a human body. Because I think sometimes my Christmas, at least, can become sort of disembodied. A free-floating legend of joy and peace that never really lands in either the ancient Middle East or in New Haven, Connecticut on the first day of 2017. Never becomes embodied. One of my friends wrote in his Christmas card this year this sort of horrible wish. He said, I surely hope that you are finding ways to preach hope these days. We certainly need it. As though it was my job to create all the hope in the world. We do need it. The elections, the economy, race relations, social media all seem to be feeding a deep sense of anxiety and uncertainty. So this New Year's Day, I'm wondering how we can embody the Christmas story and carry it forward in our own time. To pull it out of sort of an ethereal timelessness and give it flesh and time and place. The Hebrew Bible text, which we heard read for this first Sunday of Christmas, points the way. It comes from the third part of the book of Isaiah. In this text, the prophet is responding to his own tough and uncertain times. The Israelites who were exiled in Babylon have come back. Good things. But they found that their temple is still destroyed, their capital is still in ruins, and their nation deeply divided between those who stayed and those who have come back. And Isaiah reminds them, as almost all of the Hebrew Bible does, that God is with them as God has been. I will recount the gracious deeds of God, the praiseworthy acts of God, because of all that God has done for us, and the great favor to the house of Israel that God has shown. We're so used to hearing words like this in church, I think, that we sort of, we sing them like the psalm and then we close the book and we sit down. We may not really hear them, but it is striking that Isaiah's response to deep trouble is to remember what God has done. Isaiah wants us to use all the tenses of the verb. God has acted to save God's people. God is acting to save God's people. God will act to save God's people. He writes, God loves and pities God's people. God trusts the people to be faithful. And God's presence, and this is Christmas, comes to the people in their distress. The Christmas story, I think, as Isaiah would read it, is a story that can only be understood by people who remember all that God has done. The same language in the Magnificat and the Song of Simeon that sometimes makes us a little uncomfortable. It seems so specific that God is acting for me and my people. But the God of Christmas, as I think we take Isaiah into this, is not a universal principle of love and peace, but God is a specific God who acted for specific people in specific ways in specific places, who loved them not in disembodied universalism, but with the specific love of a mother for her child. And this is the embodiment of Christmas. Christmas is a new thing, a new covenant, but the old story, the old covenant is its source, a God in deep covenant with the people through triumph and disaster. And this speaks to me as I look back over 2016, because when we think human progress is doing just fine, social justice is improving, the economy is stable, government is predictable and progressive, we don't have any use for this sense that God is coming in pity and love to redeem the people in their distress. This is when we need to hear that message. And that's a message that only makes sense across the arc of time. But it's difficult to reacquire this old story when we've convinced ourselves that what's really important is me and now. Robert Brown Taylor writes about this passage that part of its beauty is that it points us away from the isolation of individual experience and the prison of the present. She's saying that we need to change our thinking to reacquire this big story. That we're so focused on the now and the me that we lose it. We lose that big picture, that sense that we're part of something bigger. I think I have trouble connecting to the full sweep of our story of faith today because I'm so often focused on me, the most important thing, and how I feel in response to what's happening in the moment, as my Facebook feed tells me. Embodying Christmas, on the other hand, instead of now and me, is about always and about us. I think embodying Christmas means finding ourselves in this strange story of God's saving action for God's people, a story that's not even really ours, except for St. Paul's insistence that we Gentiles be grafted on. In Isaiah, the people are reminded that there was a time God saved them from their distress, a time when God lifted them up and carried them, and that this will happen again. Embodying Christmas is an act of remembering. As far-fetched as it sounds, we are part of that same story of God's creation, God's covenant, God's liberation, the struggle of God's people to be faithful, their inevitable failure, exile, and return. Christmas only makes sense in this context. In early December, I was visiting in Chicago with old friends from seminary. We hadn't seen each other in 26 years. And as we talked about who we were back then, and what it meant now, and what had happened over all these years, we found that the story we had told other people about who we are, the biography that goes in your profile, the biography that goes on your resume, the story you tell about how you got to where you are, we found that that wasn't really true. And people who knew me 26 years ago had a very different story to tell. We found ourselves revealing the breakdowns and the setbacks, the long struggles, the disappointments and the griefs, and I was struck by how only as the pain was revealed did the power and joy of our survival make sense. We had come through so much. And so it is with our story as the people of God. We are part of a heritage, a people often lost and often faithless, but a people locked into a relationship with a particular God over time, a God who loves fiercely and has fierce expectations. The uncertainty and anxiety of 2017 is not unprecedented. It's part of an always, of prophets and exiles, of golden ages and national disaster. But we need to find ourselves in that story in order to receive its wisdom. And I think we embody Christmas when we move from me to us. God came to a nation and us, not to individuals. Isaiah sticks with only plural pronouns in that reading you heard read so beautifully. But an us can be hard to acquire these days. Certainly our congregations are us's, and the plans that Redeemer and United are making celebrate a wonderful, larger sense of us. But when I look around me, I see so many isolated and alienated people, deeply divided culturally, politically, feeling alone, feeling disconnected from substantial commitments. And finding an identifiable us can be hard. I used to harbor the sense in the back of my head, some of you older folks like me will understand this, that there was a vast, quiet nation of progressive Protestant Christians just like me. And in the end, that's who was really here. But today, progressivism has split into pieces, as have our denominations, and the sense that I'm part of something solid and identifiable is pretty much gone. But as we meditate on Christ coming to the world, we can imagine new us's. Perhaps it's time for me to give up my litmus tests for who is on my side and enlarge the us. Clearly, we need to move beyond the crumbling barricades of the 60s and wonder, who is it that embodies kindness and humility in an age of anger and resentment? Who do we know? What people do I know that have actually given their lives to service? Who do I know that's able to see God every day in their life? I want to be around those people. Not necessarily the people that share my political opinions. I want to be around those people. Who are the people I meet and the voices I hear that embody a reverence for God and holy things? There'll never be another liberal Protestant establishment in America, and believe it or not, that's a good thing. But how is the embodied God visible around us? Christmas points us to unlikely people and partners who will stretch who we thought we were. As I reach a certain age, in now my late 50s this year, I have a great fear that I will end up like one of the ancient Yale alumni who return and regale us with stories of the glory days of 1951 and 1970. They're delightful and well-meaning, and I love them, but they have no sense that what they remember simply doesn't connect with today. But that's not what remembering in faith means. It's not trying to bring back the past. Remembering in faith is seeing through both then and now to see the arc of history that Martin Luther King invoked, the hidden ways that God is pulling history forward. We're part of something bigger than our individual stories, and remembering is actually the opposite of nostalgia. It is revealing that what we thought we did, God did, and is doing, and will do in 2017. John Wesley, the 18th century founder of Methodism, created a New Year's covenant renewal service that we've used, which begins with a litany of praise. I think in the end, that's what it comes down to. Can we praise God in 2017? Do we close the book after that message that hate is strong and mocks that song? Or do we believe that God is not dead? God is not asleep? And do we do the work of digging into the scriptures and digging into the world around us and looking for that story that we can be a part of, and that story that other people are already enacting around us? Can we break down our old expectations and see that God is here? And God is here to save God's people.